Well, from the majestic shores of the North Saskatchewan River, right here in scenic Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, this is your host, Scott Roos, on the line today for Down to the River radio show. And of course, with me as my very special guest is an exciting new young talent. I am talking today with JJ Wilde, whose music has been lighting up the charts for the last 3 or 4 weeks. JJ, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good. I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Not bad. Now, here's the thing, JJ. I mean, I'm sure you're being asked this question on every interview, but I mean, given the quality of the songs on your record, Ruthless, it's about to drop any day now. I mean, did you expect these singles to, chart as well and do as well as they have, or is this a complete and utter surreal shock/surprise?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's not like I expected them to do this well, but I had hoped. So there was definitely a little bit of, maybe something like this could happen. But in reality, it is a complete shock and surprise, and it seems pretty surreal still.
Yeah, no, I think, from your press releases and bio, I mean, you're 26 years old, correct?
Well, that was a year ago, so I'm actually 27 now.
Uh-huh. So now,
Yep.
Given that fact, I mean, how long have you been at this now? Because I know, like, for a lot of artists, a quote-unquote break, oftentimes it almost takes a decade. So, I mean, is this something that you've been, pursuing and doing for quite some time now?
It is, yeah. I've been pursuing music since, probably actively since 18, but I started playing guitar when I was about 15-ish. And then I think it was the next year that I started, I wouldn't say actively pursuing because I was too young, but I was going to, coffee houses and open mics and stuff like that because it always was a passion of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as I was old enough to play gigs, I started playing gigs. So really, I have been pursuing this for quite a while.
Right. Yeah. Well, now this is in Kitchener. I mean, tell us a little bit about that Kitchener music scene.
It's got a great music scene. There's a lot of talented people here, but it is small. So, the same people play at the same bars, and it's kind of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was first starting out, I would try to play gigs as close to Toronto as I could, but then, there's so many musicians playing the same gig, so that also comes with its own set of challenges to get somewhere.
Right.
I found that was a difficult thing, as being before an independent artist and trying to book my own stuff and everything. It was kind of that situation where it was hard to get gigs if you hadn't played a gig yet. But then how are you ever going to play your first gig? Like, I found a lot of the times if I didn't have a kind of almost like a resume, right, of where you've played and stuff like that, and it was really hard to get into some places. But you just keep going, and I started out in more of the restaurant kind of thing, just playing
Right.
while people were eating, and then I got up to the bar scene, and then playing gigs for tickets and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, given the fact that you started to pick up a guitar around 15 years old, I mean, what lit the fuse to get you to pick up the instrument in the first place? What inspired you?
It was my older brother. He is very talented with guitar, bass, drums. He's just an all-around great musician.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was younger, I looked up to him and I saw him playing, and I thought it was just the coolest thing. So I asked him to teach me how to play, and he did. So really, he started my kind of my love for guitar. And then as soon as I started to be able to put chords together, that was an even more exciting thing, because I had been writing before I knew how to play guitar. I'd been writing songs, but they were more like poems,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have any music to go with them. And then once he taught me how to play guitar, it was like a whole different world. I now, had this thing open up where I could put music to my writing and everything. So it was very exciting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, definitely a freedom in being able to do that. Now, I was thinking now too, just as you were talking, you mentioned, moving your way up and climbing the ladder, but I mean, getting to your actual sound and style, I mean, this is pure unadulterated rock and roll. I mean, did you grow up with rock and roll fandom kind of?
It's funny. I definitely did. When I was younger, I took after, again, like I was saying, my family's kind of influences of like my older brother and my dad and my mom and what they were listening to, and my sister, before I had like my real own taste of music, because it was just what was around and what was playing in the house. So there was a lot of classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd, Eric Clapton, like those kind of bands, and that definitely stemmed a love for rock and roll music, for the sound and everything like that. And then as I got a little bit older, I started to experiment with different sounds, going into different genres, but then it always came back to that. And I think the most fun thing about the sound is performing it on stage.
Right.
Because, I used to write folk music, and I still, some of my songs, they start out as folk songs and then we put the kind of rock into them. But I used to play folk music, and that was the one thing on stage. It was really fun and beautiful music, but I've always loved the song in the set where I could just go crazy, and it was like the harder song, right?
Yeah.
And then now the sets that I play, every song is that, and I love it.
Now, I was thinking like there's almost like a garage rock kind of element to your sounds, sort of like a cross between like Pac AD and Beaches. I mean, are these, groups or bands that are kind of on your radar or have been on your radar at one time or another?
For sure. I mean, I listen to all types of music, right? But I think I draw influence from, I draw influence more, I'd say, from day-to-day experiences than music itself, which sounds weird, but what inspires me to write and the styles and everything, it's more, if I witness something cool or I see something, I see a conversation between two strangers and it kind of sparks like, oh, that's an interesting story, and then write about it. Or from personal experiences, which, I mean, this album is all personal experience, but right. I more write from that than listening to something and thinking, oh, I want to write something like that. Like, I've never really had that thought, except, you know what, Kings of Leon. I just love them.
Who doesn't love some Kings of Leon from time to time?
I'm that's definitely.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, like, there's, when you sing those tender ballads, I mean, there is a definite, emotional vulnerability in your voice, not unlike, somebody maybe like Adele too. Like, is she a singer that's sort of in orbit around what you're doing and how you express yourself?
Oh, absolutely. When she's such an influence. When I was in college, I think I listened to her album for like 3 months straight. Like I remember when I first discovered her and hearing such a powerful voice come from a woman, it was so inspiring to me, because it's not the typical kind of high pitched, really flowy voice. She has this booming, low, beautiful, powerful voice. And when I heard that, because I've always had a low voice and been a little bit, not self-conscious about it, but it's different. Sure. And so to hear someone like that come out and be a huge success, it was very inspiring for me. So she's definitely a huge influence.
Yeah. So then when it comes to actually like writing the lyrics, you mentioned how you draw experience from real life and actual, situations. And I know there's several stories behind a lot of these songs, but I mean, how do you know when a situation is kind of like right for the song? I mean, is there a certain feel or mood or vibe that you get from, your daily observations?
Yes, absolutely. I know exactly when the moment hits. It's like a specific feeling. It's hard to describe, but it's just, I get this feeling. It's like, I need to write this now, and I'll just sit down instantly and start writing, or I carry my phone with me so that I can always make voice notes whenever that feeling hits. And I make sure that I do, because it doesn't happen every day. But I find that I get my best writing out of those little glimpses of inspiration. So as soon as it hits, I try to at least get the idea down so I can go back to it and try and think, oh, what was I feeling when I made that little note or something like that. But then also with like the personal experience side of it, oftentimes I'll write a song that I don't even know what it's about yet. You know, it's obviously something that's happening in my life, and it's almost like some way of expressing it and getting through it. And then a week later, I'll listen to that voice note and think, oh, that's what that's about. So it's not always that a situation happens and I have to write about it. More so I end up writing about it and then later on think, oh, that I understand now where that was happening and what was going on and that kind of thing. So it's a little backwards sometimes, but it works.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that makes sense. I was thinking too now, like when you have an idea and you start to pursue it, like, do you have to get it all out in one sitting? Is it something you pick away at? And then, you know, on the flip side, like, you know, do you get partway through a song and you think, this isn't going to work and abandon it? Do you leave it for later? You know what I mean?
Yep. I've done all of the above. I mean, there's definitely some, and I don't know if that's the writing process or maybe just, how it feels or the importance of it in that moment. But definitely there's been songs where I get the entire song out in 5 minutes or an hour or something like that, where I just know it's got to be said and I have the full vision of what it is right there. And I get it all out. And that's the best time. But that doesn't always happen. Like a lot of the times it'll be that feeling of inspiration. I think, oh my gosh, I'm about to write something awesome. And then I get two lines into the song, like, this is shit. and then I'll leave it and come back to it and then kind of work through it that way. Right. But at least when I have those little half written things, usually I know that, okay, that was worth something at one point. I thought it was really great. So I'm at least going to try and get back and take a crack at finishing it. But it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
Sometimes they just go completely unfinished, and who knows, there's a vault of many songs like that. Yeah,
it's funny when people talk about cell phones. I mean, this is going to show my age, but I mean, I never think about using the cell phone in my own songwriting, which I don't do all that often. But I never think, oh, if I'm inspired, I have a recorder right in my hands. I'm always still thinking, oh, I got to get home so I can write this down. But it's just it's just a different it's just a different world now with the amount of technology that we have at our disposal. So it's cool to hear when people make use of it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the other funny thing about writing from those tiny moments of inspiration is that sometimes if I do that and I think, okay, I got to write this down, I'll be halfway through the song and then forget some, like, you know, pivotal part of it, and it's going to be the best part, and then all of a sudden it escapes me. So that's happened quite a few times where I've stopped and I've done something else, and then I come back and I can't remember the, like, exact words or something like that. It's so frustrating. So I did start making sure that I record everything just so I have it. Even if it ends up being nothing, at least I didn't lose a good a good line or a good melody or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, now, of course, I mentioned off the top that your debut full length, Ruthless, is about to drop June 12th. Depending on when people hear this, it could have already dropped. But I mean, I thought maybe, you know, let's take a you know, a little gander at a few of these songs. I mean, I did mention the Adele influence, and it in particular comes across in the ballads. I mean, let's talk about Gave It All. I mean, what were you up to there, and just give us a little bit of background with that track.
So that song, Gave It All, I actually wrote when I was about 16 years old.
Wow.
And it was one of those songs that it just always stayed with me. Playing gigs. As the years went on, I kept that song for some reason. It never kind of went away. So that's one of the oldest ones from that album. Mm-hmm. But that one essentially, it started out as a breakup song, as most songs do, but it ended up being something completely different. It ended up being a realization of losing yourself in the pursuit of someone or something. To me, it was someone. It was the pursuit of a relationship. But then I kind of started thinking on a more grand scale that it could be, you know, when you go for that job that you've always wanted, but then you need to make this change and you end up losing parts of yourself to obtain something that you thought you really wanted. And then you get there and it's kind of like, oh, did I even want that? Is this what I really wanted in the first place? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that realization of losing parts of yourself or things that make you happy and then taking them back, essentially. So that it started out with acoustic guitar and harmonica, and it was only, you know, a verse and a chorus basically, and then I took it to my producer Frederick Bay and we finished it. We put a bridge in and, you know, really dove in on the instrumentals, and it ended up being exactly what I envisioned from the start, which was pretty amazing. But yeah.
Yeah. On the flip side, Cold Shoulder is almost like a rock, sort of pop rock, you know, dance track.
Yeah. So that one, it's funny too, that one started as a slow, grungy kind of 90s sounding song. The first demos of it were very angsty, let's say. And it was more of like a desperation cry of want to be reckless, want to be ready, and all these things. And then my producer said, well, how about because it just wasn't landing right. There was something when the chorus hit, none of us were super happy, but I loved the lyrics and the message and everything. So then we decided to up the tempo. And at first, I'm not going to lie, I was very against the tempo change. I loved it the way that I wrote it, and I was being very stubborn, and I wasn't really open to it. But then we sat on it for a little bit, and I ended up loving the groove that we put on it. And then it kind of changed how the rest of the song went. Then we wrote the second verse, and it became this more powerful cry of what you want, not a desperate cry.
Right.
So that song, it was cool. That was kind of a moment where we decided to go a different direction with a few songs that are also on the album. But it definitely took the music from, you know, the mid-tempo to slow kind of rock and ballad stuff and took it in a whole different direction that I'm really glad we did, because now, you know, there's a few other songs that have just a bit more variety, right?
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking now, I mean, it's kind of hard to get out and pound the pavement in terms of this record and playing actual shows. So I guess the operative question would be, I mean, you know, apart from doing as much press as you probably can, and, you know, trying to like contact radio stations and things, or like, you know, working with your publicist or whatever, I mean, what do you got on the docket in the near future, JJ?
So that's the thing. It is difficult not being able to go out and play shows, but we're getting creative, and luckily there has been a lot of interview opportunities and more of like the live streaming shows, which I've been having a lot of fun with, you know, going on, talking about the music, playing 3 or 4 songs for whatever audience is there, either through radio stations or on my own. So that's been really fun, but just more of that kind of stuff. And then, just all online. We're trying to basically get together and play shows, but it's impossible. So we're doing the next best thing and doing live performances that people can tune into.
Yeah.
So I usually do a coffee and a cover segment on my live Instagram, which is fun because I get to interact with people. It's like a live chat and also playing songs. So that's been really enjoyable. But all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We'll find a way to still perform.
For sure. I mean, one thing that I'm noticing now is artists are starting to, you know, think, geez, I mean, this is lasting a lot longer than I expected it to. And there's venues now that are, you know, starting to, you know, charge tickets or use, you know, virtual tipping and stuff like that. I mean, is this a direction you see yourself moving in?
Yeah, well, I've toyed around with the idea, nothing's for sure yet, but of having because where I am, Kitchener-Waterloo, they're starting to open phase 2. So some places are reopening, which is amazing, and there's some rehearsal spaces that offer socially distant rehearsals or shows that you can live stream. So we're toying with that, where it's no longer just me and an acoustic guitar, but it's actually a live performance of me and my whole band. Mm-hmm. But we're just trying to figure out what that looks like still. So nothing's set in stone, but I'm really hoping that we can do that, because I can't wait to play with those guys again.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. So where's the best place to go then to find out, all things JJ Wilde? Right.
So my website, and also jjwildchild.com, and also JJ Wildchild on all socials. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I usually keep up with everything on all of the platforms.
Right on.
So that's where you can find me.
Excellent. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I did definitely appreciate the conversation, JJ. And, for all intent and purpose, I mean, things are definitely in an upward trajectory in spite of, COVID-19 and all of this, pandemic stuff. So I definitely wish you all the best, and, good luck when your record drops Friday, June 12th. I think, I've had a chance to listen to each track, and it's definitely in my top 5 records that I've heard so far this year. So not that my opinion counts for much, but congratulations on putting out something truly remarkable.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
All right, well, you have a good day.
You too. It's good talking to you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.